Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to share with you the story You Can Do It, Curious George. It's written by Margaret and H.A. Rays, and of course, it's about your good friend, Curious George. As with all our stories that we read, this book has two sections. The first section we'll be able to find on page 2, and it's the story You Can Do It, Curious George. And it's fantasy. That means it's not real. It's something just thought up in the author's mind and just a fun little story. The second section is poems, and it's poetry, and we can find that on page 26. Well, let's go ahead and start the story. You Can Do It, Curious George. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. George loved going to the museum with his friend. While they were visiting the museum, they saw a sign. The sign said the museum had won a prize. People voted this museum as their favorite. They said this museum is the best. People really liked that place. George saw the sign. He started to think, what could he do best? He decided to find out. You can do it, George, said the man with the yellow hat. George went back home. He was good at drawing dinosaurs. Maybe he could draw the best dinosaur picture ever. What are you good at? George decided that he liked to draw, but he wanted to try something different. He climbed out the window to look for his ideas. Did you catch that? Out and look, 2 of your sight words you're working on. Great job. Soon George came to a restaurant. That gave him a great idea. Sorry, can't get that page turned. There it is. Thank you for being patient. Oh my goodness. Look what George is getting into. George loved spaghetti. He decided he would make the best spaghetti ever. You can do it, George. Look at all the spaghetti. George thought it tasted great. He tasted more and more of it and made a big mess. Look who came in. Then the chef came in. Get out, he shouted. Out of my kitchen. George was going to have to find somewhere else he did best. George needed another idea. He got on the bus to think. The bus took him to the ski slope. That gave George an idea. He grabbed the biggest sled he could find. Maybe he could sled down the hill faster than anyone else ever had before. You can do it, George. Are you helping me read the You Can Do It, George part? Sorry, I've got to really learn how to get these pages there so you can see it. At first, sledding was fun. Then George started going too fast. Look out, George! George was going to have to find something else he did best. Can you see that? George needed another idea. Then he remembered something he did better than anyone. He rushed back home. The little sign says home that way. When he got there, he took out his kite. He was going to be the best kite flyer ever. George got his kite to go higher and higher. You can do it, George. Then the little kite lifted right off the ground. Look out below. Wait till you see what happened to George. Oh my. George landed in a tree in the forest. His kite flew away without him. George was going to have to find something else he did best. Just then George spotted smoke. Oh no, it was a forest fire. George wanted to warn everybody about the fire. He raced to town and found the fire station, and the firefighters quickly put out the fire. By now the sun was setting. It was too late for George to figure out what he did best. George's friend met him back at the museum. The director had heard that George warned everyone about the forest fire. She thought that was the very best thing anyone had done in a long time. George did it! Hooray! He found out what he can do best. He is the best helper. George got a very special prize that day. Ooh, can you see in the mirror? He got a medal to wear around his neck. Before I read the poems, that was the end of Curious George story, I wanted to share a little something about Curious George. A long time ago, I used to take care of a little girl named Katie. And one of Katie's favorite stories were all the different stories about Curious George. And she was only 2 or 3, so she wasn't talking real well. But whenever the man in the yellow hat would say, George, don't get into trouble, Katie would always say, George, don't get into trouble. And whenever I read Curious George, I always remember Katie. So thank you for sharing that memory with me and Curious George. Well, let's go on to the poems, to the poetry. This one is Whistling. See the little boy trying to whistle or whistling? Let's read and see if he's actually doing it. Whistling by Jack Perlusky. Oh, I can laugh and I can sing and I can scream and shout, but when I try to whistle, the whistle won't come out. I shape my lips the proper way, I make them small and round, but when I blow, just air comes out. There is no whistling sound. But I'll keep trying very hard to whistle loud and clear, and someday soon I'll whistle tunes for everyone to hear. When I was reading that, were you blowing your cheeks out trying to whistle like he did? This one is Time to Play, and it's written by Nikki Grimes. Let's see. There we go. Now you can see it. He's in a rocket. Let's see what he has to say. Mama says to play outside. I wish I had a bike to ride. I'll fly to the moon instead. Steer the rocket in my head. I'll pretend to find a star no one else has seen so far. Then I'll name it after me, Africa Luanda Lee. But for now, I'll grab some chalk, play hopscotch out on the walk. Did you hear all those different rhyming words? Let's see. Outside, ride, instead, head, star, far, me, Lee, chalk, and walk. There were a lot of rhymes. And here's the last one. It's By Myself by Eloise Greenfield. When I'm by myself and I close my eyes, I'm a twin. I'm a dimple in a chin. I'm a room full of toys. I'm a squeaky noise. I'm a gospel song. I'm a gong. I'm a leaf turning red. I'm a loaf of brown bread. I'm whatever I want to be. And anything I care to be. And when I open my eyes, what I care to be is me. How much fun she was having thinking and imagining all that different stuff. Well, that's the end of our book today. Thank you so much for sharing the poems, and you can do it Curious George with me. And as I'm looking for my little stop sign here, I'll say goodbye, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.